Meet Machida Hajime. He looks like the top-ranked student in a prestigious academy, but the only thing he's currently mastering is the art of the grocery run. 6:30 in the morning. The alarm barely has a chance to beep twice before he's moving. A pair of rectangular frames click into place, sharpening a world that's about to get very busy. The kitchen is his domain today. He cracks eggs with precision while his mother, radiant and very pregnant, hunts for deals in the morning paper. She's found the prize. It looks like minced meat is cheap today. His mother has a request. She wants his homemade hamburgers tonight. Machida accepts the mission with the gravity of a soldier, despite the fact that his current culinary expertise is limited to boiling water and not burning the toast. Breakfast hasn't even hit the plates before the sibling war starts. Shiori is in tears because Keigo got physical, and in a house this full, Machida is the only one who can lower the temperature. He doesn't scold, he guides. He tells Shiori that being a good girl means having the courage to apologize first. One gentle pat on the head, and the storm starts to clear. Keigo folds too, offering his own sorry. Their mother watches from the sidelines, her heart swelling for the son who sees everything and keeps her world spinning. Then comes the splash. Mitsuo fumbles, and Machida's school sweater takes a direct hit of hot soup. Most people would yell. Machida just starts to wipe. He turns a disaster into a moment of gratitude, thanking Mitsuo for watering the flower pots. The boy is stunned. He didn't think anyone had even noticed. Nico stumbles out, half asleep and reaching for the top shelf. Machida is already there, sliding the Milo down before she even has to ask. Amidst the beautiful chaos of the Machida household, Hajime's eyes are always roaming, looking for the tiny things. He leans in close to Nico. "You've got rice here." A tiny flick of his finger clears her cheek, and Nico's heart is doing backflips. She beams at him, declaring, "Oni-chan is really cool." Machida just stares at his fried egg, baffled. "But I'm not cool at all." The rest of the siblings join the chorus. They all think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He just pulls his laces tight, unable to see what they see. Once outside, the domestic peace is replaced by a high-stakes mission. He's scrolling through his phone like it's a field manual, desperate to figure out how to handle raw meat without it becoming a crime scene. Machida is what you'd call an analog soul in a digital world. While everyone else is lost in their screens, he's barely navigating his flip phone. School looms ahead, and he's already falling behind the curve. The papers come back, and the legend of the smart-looking glasses student dies instantly, a 38. His classmate wants an explanation for the math problem, but looking at his grade, she's realizing she might be better off asking a houseplant. He doesn't get defensive. He just offers a sincere bow. "I'm also sorry for not matching your impression of me." Even with failing grades, his kindness is a perfect score. PE is even worse. He finishes the 50-meter dash in over 12 seconds. The other kids are looking at him like he's running through molasses. The teacher tries to be supportive, shouting about how everyone has strong and weak points. Machida takes the lecture with a straight face, thanking him for his concern. His classmates think he's unshakable, but they've got it all wrong. He's not ignoring the insults. He's just too busy obsessing over how many onions it takes to make a burger patty. He skips a proper lunch to head to the library. Time is the enemy, and he's currently multitasking by shoving bread into his mouth while power walking to the reference section. Nico's voice is still ringing in his head. If handling the housework and supporting his mother is what makes him cool, then he's going to be the coolest big brother that ever lived. He treats the cooking section like a bomb disposal manual. One wrong ingredient, and dinner is a dud. Even the simple stuff is a struggle. He's sounding out the words like a first grader, trying to wrap his head around what mince actually is. Flip, 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 the pages are flying, but his brain is stuck on the first step. The bell tolls for his failed research session. There are still a dozen things he doesn't understand, but as the chalkboard fills up with math, his mind is already at the butcher shop. He's doing the math, not the geometry on the board, but the tactical breakdown of his afternoon. Errands, 90 minutes. Prep, 2 hours. Dinner at 7. If he misses a single beat, the family goes hungry. He kicks himself for not researching enough during lunch. He's starting to wonder if the PE teacher was right. Does he have any good points at all? The teacher calls on him to solve a problem. Machida stands up, looks the man in the eye, and delivers the truth with zero shame. I do not know. Academics might be a bust, but the second the bell rings, he's shouldering a heavy box for the teacher. He can't help himself. Machida Hajime is perpetually concerned for everyone but himself. His classmate watches him walk by, carrying that massive box like it's a feather. She's searching for a hidden talent, a secret genius, anything to explain the look on his face. She's struggling with a loose thumbtack on the bulletin board. Machida doesn't even break stride. He just reaches out, his thumb pressing the pin home before it can fall. A quiet thanks follows him into the staff room. He drops the load and heads for the door, his schedule still ticking away in the back of his mind. He even stops to wipe a stray bit of bean paste off a teacher's face. You have Anko here. He's so focused on being helpful that he doesn't see the baseball flying toward his skull. Thud, direct hit. The baseball player rushes over to apologize, but Machida is already smiling through the headache. He congratulates the guy on finally becoming a regular on the team. He's been paying attention to everyone's hard work. He makes the long trek back, eventually picking up one of the younger ones for a piggyback ride. The gate hasn't even fully opened before the screams of Ni-chan start filling the air. The simple truth of his life is written on every one of those faces. Machida-kun loves people, and with every ounce of their chaotic, noisy hearts, they love him back. He's buried under a mountain of siblings, a living pile of warmth and gratitude. It's a splendid strong point to have, even if he's the only one who doesn't see it. Then, reality bites. The hamburgers are pitch-black discs of carbon. He was so terrified of serving them raw that he incinerated them. Sorry, I failed. His mother doesn't miss a beat. She peels away the char to reveal the juicy meat inside, and suddenly everyone is cheering. Failure doesn't live long in this house. She tells him about her own early disasters and how his father ate them anyway. It's a blessing to be surrounded by people who love you more than they love a perfect meal. And for tomorrow? She's already eyeing the roast beef. Machida Hajime pushes his glasses up one last time as the stars come out. He might not be smart, and he definitely isn't fast, but he knows his place in this world. Understood. Morning in the Machida house starts with the rhythmic sizzle of eggs hitting the pan and the sudden, shrill panic of a younger brother. Mitsuo is currently acting like his life is flashing before his eyes, all because of a tiny snap in the kitchen. Machida doesn't even blink at the sight of blood that is essentially a microscopic dot. While Mitsuo wails about dying from a textbook paper cut, Machida is already mentally cataloging the first aid kit location. Then there's Nico, who finds the whole tragedy hilarious. Nico isn't letting him off the hook, calling him an idiot for the theatrics. But Machida remains the anchor. He handles Mitsuo's faint-hearted soul with the same quiet care he gives to everything else, before the scene shifts to the imposing gates of school. Karma has a weird sense of humor, because now it's Machida's turn to bleed, a slip of the chisel in art class, a sharp red drip on the table, and his classmates are hovering with concern. He just offers a stoic apology, I cut my finger with the chisel. A sharp gasp from the back of the room proves he's not exactly invisible. He tries to wave off the concern with his usual flat affect, promising to head to the nurse. I'll go to the infirmary again. Walking down the hall, Machida isn't thinking about the sting. He's reflecting on Mitsuo's panic from that morning. He realizes that wounds don't just hurt the body, they make the people watching anxious. He makes a silent vow to wipe the traces away later. The infirmary is dead quiet. No nurse, just the sterile scent of bandages and a heavy silence. Machida stands there awkwardly, his own heartbeat suddenly the loudest thing in the room as he realizes someone else is hiding in the shadows. The curtain whips back with a violent whoosh. This isn't a nurse, it's a girl with eyes like flint and a demand for absolute silence. She looks at Machida like he's an intrusion on her sanctuary, and for a second the air just stops, quiet. She doesn't wait for his permission. Seeing the mess he's made, she drags him over, her movements sharp and efficient. Since the nurse is AWOL, she decides to play medic, her hands steady as she begins to clean the wound while Machida just stammers out apologies. She pulls out a plaid handkerchief, tying it around his hand with a focus that borderlines on aggressive. Machida watches, frozen. He's more worried about her ruining a clean cloth than his own finger. With this, Inohara-san's handkerchief will become dirty. Indifference is her armor. She claims it makes no difference to her, but the way she looks at him when he says her name is pure static. He simply points out they're in the same class. She's already at the door, her exit as sharp as her gaze. I see. She stops in the doorway just long enough to drop a verbal bomb. She's moving locations because he's here, and then she says it, the line that defines her whole world. I hate people. Machida doesn't let her walk away with that bitterness hanging in the air. He reaches out, catching her before she disappears. He doesn't offer an argument, just a sincere, glowing smile. Thank you, I'm really glad that you were here. Inohara short-circuits, shouting gross, before sprinting down the hall in a blur of embarrassment. Machida is left standing there, completely baffled. Later that night, the stars are out, and Mitsuo is already freaking out again at the sight of Machida's bandaged hand. What's with that injury, Oni-chan? Machida insists it's nothing, his glasses catching the light as he brushes off the concern. But he can't shake the memory of the girl in the infirmary. Back at school, he tracks down Sakai-san, the school's unofficial source of all gossip, to ask the one question on his mind. What's the deal with Inohara-san? Sakai-san doesn't hold back. Inohara is a ghost who barely shows up to class and is probably lurking on the roof right now. When Machida is asked how he knows so much, he drops a line that would be creepy from anyone else. Since Inohara is really pretty, I follow her once in a while. He finds her on the roof, sprawled out under a wide, empty sky. She's asleep, her guard finally down. Machida stands there, the wind ruffling his hair as he just watches. It's a moment of absolute stillness, right up until the point she bolts upright in a total panic. She's shaking, demanding to know how long he's been creepily standing there. Machida just offers her a small package. He tried to find a replacement for the one he ruined, and even though he's behind schedule, he's finally here to return the favor. I'm sorry it's something cheap though. To her, the handkerchief is a waste, just like being in class when the sun is out. Machida looks at her with that terrifying sincerity of his, asking if she still keeps up with her studies while playing truant. She snaps back that it has nothing to do with him, but he's already breached the walls. Inohara tries to shove him away, calling him an honor student who's just trying to feel superior. She tells him to leave, repeating that she hates people. Machida pushes his glasses up, looking her dead in the eye. I have a liking though. Inohara is frozen, her brain probably melting from the ambiguity. Machida doubles down with a line that's both a confession and an observation of her character. He likes people, and it bothers him when someone who would help a stranger without hesitation claims to hate everyone. I like people. Later, Machida is busy being himself, spotting a classmate who's pricked her finger on a rose and sliding a bandage across the table before she can even ask. He's a machine of empathy, wondering what kind of invisible wounds make people like Inohara carry so much anxiety. The rumors are ugly stories of bullying in middle school and her turning delinquent out of despair. People whisper that she hangs out with the wrong crowd now. Machida listens, but all he hears is the echo of her voice saying she hates people. He knows there's a wound there that gossip can't see. On the walk home, Nico intercepts him, and the heavy atmosphere vanishes. She wants ice cream, and Machida, being the ultimate softie, is already reaching for his wallet. He tells her he'll buy it, calling it a date, and the joy on her face is the only reward he needs. But the worry is still there, lurking. He watches Nico skip ahead and wonders if the distance between hating people and love is actually zero. He starts spiraling, terrified that Nico might one day end up following strange guys around out of the same kind of desperation. Nico is vibrating with excitement over double chocolate, but Machida's eyes have drifted across the street. There she is, Inohara, standing with a guy who looks like trouble incarnate. The rumors were right and Machida's heart sinks. As I thought. He hands Nico her cone and tells her to go home first, his face set in a rare mask of determination. This is no good. He charges in, grabbing Inohara's shoulder and pulling her back before the player can get another word in. This girl has a kind nature. The guy is confused, and Inohara is absolutely reeling. Machida stands his ground, his hand clamped on her arm like a vice. He declares that she won't be hanging out with him anymore, sounding less like a classmate and more like a protective older brother who's gone off the deep end. She won't be hanging out with you. Then, he says the words that set the entire street on fire. He calls her someone important to him. Inohara's face goes from shock to absolute crimson as she demands to know exactly what he means by that. Someone important to you. What does that mean? Machida, the king of the literal, clarifies immediately. She's an important classmate. He just wants her to stop following dangerous guys around because he's genuinely concerned for her safety. I'd like you to stop following unknown guys around because it's dangerous. She repeats the word like she's never heard it directed at her before. Worried. He doesn't just say it. You can see it in his eyes. He believes there are better ways to experience love than this, and for the first time, Inohara's walls aren't just cracked, they're wide open. I am worried. She tries to save face with a pathetic excuse. She's not looking for love, she's just letting these guys treat her to dinner to save on food expenses. Machida just stares at her, his expression unreadable, before dropping a heavy, singular, I see. She starts panicking, insisting it's not because she's poor, but Machida goes straight for the heart of the matter. Why can't she just eat dinner with her family? The question hangs over the riverbank as the sun dips lower, turning the water into molten gold. Can't you eat dinner with your family? The truth is colder than the river. Her parents are just strangers sharing a roof, going through the motions. She's essentially living alone, floating through life on pocket money and food allowances. Machida listens, realizing her circumstances have forced her to grow up in a void. She's talking about something he has and she doesn't, a place to belong. Not having that is more than just lonely, it's frustrating. Machida watches her, the weight of her isolation finally landing on him. He doesn't say a word, let his presence do the talking. She clarifies the rumors she wasn't bullied, just excluded. She was left out until she simply stopped hoping for anything from anyone. Between home and school, she found herself in a desert where no one wanted her, so she decided she wanted no one in return. She claims she doesn't have an unpleasant wound, but Machida sees the truth. Both school and home have only served to deepen it. He looks at her with a clarity that cuts through her lies and offers the one thing she's been missing. I'd like to have Inohara-san. She's back to blushing, calling him a generator of misunderstandings. Machida just keeps walking, explaining that he simply doesn't want anyone to believe they aren't needed. To him, she's a classmate, and that's more than enough reason to care. You really cause misunderstandings. He offers her a meal, but there's a catch. The only thing he can actually make is rice with fried egg. The absurdity of it finally breaks her. Inohara laughs, a real bright sound that fills the evening air, and Machida just gives her that small, satisfied smirk. Because that's the only thing I can make. She asks for his name, and he gives it under a sky full of stars. He promises that in times of anxiety, he'll be by her side. It's a simple vow delivered as he turns the corner to his own home. It's Machida. But real life is waiting behind the front door. Nico is currently groaning in the bathroom, a victim of those 2 double-scooped ice creams Machida bought her. He stands outside the door, offering tea and a heavy heart, realizing his kindness had some unintended side effects. Nico Oni-chan is sorry. Shiori is practically vibrating with curiosity, chin resting on her palms as she watches her brother work. The silence of the laundry room is broken by a question that's been burning a hole in her brain. Do you have a girlfriend? Machida doesn't miss a beat, his hands moving with rhythmic precision as he smooths out a shirt. He doesn't look up, doesn't blush, just delivers the truth with his usual terrifying flatline. I don't have one. Apparently, in the Machida household, the romantic bar is set surprisingly low or high, depending on who you ask. Shiori tackles him with the confidence of someone who's figured out the secrets of the universe at 5 years old. She beams, announcing with total pride that she's the one in the family with the social life. A boyfriend. The train sways, a rhythmic rattle that matches the loop playing in Machida's head. 5 years old. 5. He stares out the window, trying to reconcile the image of a child barely tall enough to reach a door handle with the weight of love. He's got the glasses of a scholar and the romantic comprehension of a brick. Is it supposed to be cute, or should he be genuinely concerned? A 5-year-old in love. Machida's brain is officially short-circuiting on the commute. Most people start the day with hello, but Machida goes straight for the jugular of the human condition. He finds Inohara by the lockers, her head hanging heavy with some unspoken weight. He doesn't offer a platitude, he offers a biopsy of her current emotional state. He leans in, eyes dead serious behind those rectangular frames. Say, Inohara-san, are you in love? The question hits Inohara like a physical blow, her face erupting into a scarlet blush that she tries, and fails, to hide. She's sputtering, looking for an exit, but Machida is a wall of earnest curiosity. He doesn't see the embarrassment, he only sees the person in front of him. He shrugs off her panic with the most dangerous sentence in his vocabulary, "I like people." Then comes the classic high school trope. A letter, tucked into a shoebox like a ticking time bomb. Machida pulls it out, the paper crisp and terrifyingly white. There's no ambiguity here, just 4 words that can change the trajectory of a day. "I like you." The silence of the hallway is shattered by Nishino slamming into his desk, a whirlwind of freckles and frantic energy. He's the type of guy who wears his heart on his sleeve and his panic on his forehead. Machida watches him with the detached fascination of a scientist observing a particularly volatile chemical reaction. Nishino is a mess of he's and woes, but underneath the noise, there's a desperate yearning that even Machida can't miss. Nishino has gone through every possible scenario in his head, 1,000 digital lives lived and lost in the span of a lunch break. He's analyzed the dating landscape like a grandmaster, but every time he tries to place himself in the picture, the image glitches. He looks at Machida, his voice trailing off into a pit of hopeless realism. "It seems that my brain rejects the images." The realization hits Nishino like a freight train. That letter, the one he spent hours agonizing over, didn't go to his crush. It went into the void of Machida's shoebox. He clutches his hair, the world spinning as he realizes he didn't even put a name on the envelope. Oh, that was a mistake. Nishino is ready to dissolve into the floorboards, calling himself a bird brain and wondering if the universe is just telling him to give up. He's at rock bottom, but Machida refuses to let him stay there. He leans in, his face intense and entirely without sarcasm. "I was really happy about that letter." They sit together on a park bench, the weight of 6 consecutive rejections hanging over Nishino like a storm cloud. He's a serial confessor, a man who falls in love with the speed of a car crash and delivers his soul before he even knows the other person's favorite color. He thinks he's pathetic, a character in a story that everyone laughs at. He's convinced he's not even viewed as a man, just a harmless friend with bad timing. Machida listens, but he doesn't see a piece of junk. He sees something far more impressive. He turns to Nishino, his voice steady and devoid of judgment. Where Nishino sees failure, Machida sees a relentless, beautiful bravery. "I think you have much more courage than anyone." That one sentence is like a jolt of electricity. Nishino is back on his feet, fist clenched, eyes blazing with a dangerous new hope. He's going for the 7th attempt, and this time, he's not going alone. They track Inohara down to the rooftop, where the wind whips around her as she reads in isolation. Nishino takes a breath, the moment finally arriving. "I will definitely confess after all." Nishino doesn't do subtle. He launches into it like he's jumping off a cliff, Machida standing right behind him like a quiet, bespectacled witness. Inohara freezes, her book nearly slipping from her fingers as the words hit the air. It's loud, it's messy, and it's undeniably real. "Inohara-san, I like you." Inohara is a girl who built a fortress around her heart, but Nishino's clumsiness is the perfect battering ram. She looks down, her eyes shimmering with something she hasn't felt in a long time. Genuine, unearned appreciation. Machida watches, realizing that for all her cynicism, there are still good sides waiting to be seen. She whispers it into the wind, almost to herself. "This is the first time anyone has said that to me." Nishino smells a chance and he's not letting it go. He's practically begging now, his hands clasped as he asks for the bare minimum of a chance. Just one date, one shot at redemption. Machida steps in, not to pressure her, but to ensure she's not being cornered. He's the moral anchor in this storm of hormones. If Inohara-san doesn't like it, then you shouldn't push it. So the deal is struck, a date. But only if Machida comes along to bridge the awkward gap. Nishino shows up looking like he's trying to audition for a rom-com, waving with a grin that could power a small city. And then, he reveals the secret weapon, a bouquet of roses large enough to obscure a small child. Inohara stares at it like it's a suspicious package. A bouquet! They start walking, the bouquet safely stashed in a locker because, well, reality has a way of asserting itself. Inohara leans toward Machida, her voice dropping as she apologizes for dragging him into this 3-headed social experiment. She doesn't understand why he's being so accommodating. Machida just looks at his shoes, then back at her. He's not here as a chaperone. He's here to understand something he can't quite grasp yet. Nishino is cycling through every cool date idea he's ever seen on TV. Window shopping, coffee shops, the works. He's trying so hard he's practically sweating through his stripes. But the air is crisp and the company is quiet. Inohara breaks the loop with a suggestion that feels grounded human. No, we could go to the park and have some tea. Inohara is starting to see the cracks in her own armor. She notices the way Nishino is different from the guys who usually hit on her. He's not looking for a conquest. He's just looking for her. Machida watches her realization with a small, knowing smile. He's seeing the shift in her eyes as she starts to find value in the chaos. It's Inohara-san's good side. They navigate the escalators and storefronts, a strange trio moving through the crowd. Machida is trying to be invisible, the ultimate wingman, who also happens to be a main character. Nishino, however, is spiraling again, haunted by the ghost of his 6 previous defeats. He stops, looking at Machida with a face full of tragic uncertainty. Say, am I making a fruitless effort? Nishino is basking in the glow of his first date with a girl he actually likes, even if Machida is currently occupying the third wheel seat. But for Machida, the core concept remains a mystery. He watches the sparkling energy coming off his friend and asks the question that's been bothering him since breakfast. Say, what does romantic love feel like? Nishino doesn't have a textbook answer, but he has a feeling. He thinks that maybe all types of love are connected at the roots, and for him, the branch just grows exceptionally fast. He's not a philosopher, he's just a guy who experiences life at a higher frequency. He laughs, admitting his own fatal flaw with total honesty. You fall in love with amazing speed. Nishino is leaning into the sparkle of the moment, telling Machida that when the right time comes, he'll know it. It's like a broken leg, it just happens, and then you're in it. He wants to be the one Machida consults when his heart finally catches up to his head. He beams, offering the most natural advice in the world. It is only natural to fall in love. Machida isn't worried about himself, but he starts to wonder if he should consult Nishino about his sister's dating life. The dumped idiot next to him might actually have some wisdom to share. He looks at Nishino and sees a strong heart beneath the freckles. Then Inohara returns, her presence pulling the air back into the room. She's apologetic, her voice softening as she rejoins the group. The peaceful atmosphere is cut short by a voice from the past. A couple of guys from Nishino's middle school appear, their smiles not quite reaching their eyes. They're the type of people who use familiarity as a weapon. They home in on Inohara immediately, their tone dripping with a condescension that makes Nishino visibly shrink. Oh, a pretty girl. The guy isn't just rude, he's a shark looking for blood. He laughs at the idea of Nishino having a girlfriend, his hand patting Nishino's head like he's a stray dog. Then he turns his attention to Machida, mocking the glasses and the silence. He delivers the line with a sneer that fills the entire frame. You seem like a pathetic character, don't you? Machida doesn't react to the insults thrown at him, but when the guy starts to dismantle Nishino's dignity, something in Machida's quiet world shifts. He thinks about Nishino's bravery, his relentless attempts to be sparkling in a world that wants him dull. He speaks up, his voice cutting through the laughter like a cold blade. I respect Nishino-kun since... The guy reaches out to touch Nishino again, but he never makes contact. A hand firm, immovable, and terrifyingly calm snaps around his wrist. The air goes dead silent. Machida isn't hiding behind his glasses anymore. He's right in the guy's face, his eyes cold and focused. He doesn't yell, he just delivers a command that makes the bully freeze in his tracks. Don't act so overly familiar. Nishino stares at Machida like he's seeing a god descend from the heavens. The guy who usually fails gym class just physically dominated a bully without breaking a sweat. Machida lets go, but his internal compass hasn't moved. He still sees the genuine passion and sincerity in Nishino, and he's not going to let anyone tarnish it. His respect isn't a lie, it's the most solid thing in the room. They don't stick around for a round two. They run, their footsteps echoing against the pavement, hearts pounding as they put distance between themselves and the toxic past. Inohara is trailing behind, watching Machida's back as he leads them through the streets. She realizes she might want to fall in love someday too, if it looks anything like the quiet strength she just witnessed. They catch their breath near the park, the adrenaline slowly fading. Nishino is a mess of gratitude, his face flushed as he thanks Machida for covering for him. But Machida knows when his job is done. He hands over the locker keys, the ones holding that massive bouquet, and makes a tactical retreat. He knows these two need to be alone, and he's more than happy to disappear into the background. Inohara stands with Nishino, the silence between them no longer heavy, but expectant. Nishino notices her transformation, the way she started talking to Machida, the way she started engaging with the world again. He's observant in his own frantic way. He looks at her, his voice soft. I noticed. Nishino reveals that he's been watching her too. He's seen her waiting by the school gate every morning, waiting for Machida to arrive. It's what made him so impatient, what made him rush that letter into the wrong shoebox. He thought he had to act before she got too close to someone else. It's a confession of insecurity, delivered with a shaky, honest laugh. Inohara still doesn't fully understand love, but she's willing to try. She encourages Nishino to keep at it, to keep being his wonderfully earnest self. It's not a yes, but it's a door that's finally unlocked. Nishino beams, his eyes wet with tears of pure relief. For him, the day was a victory. Thank you for facing me on equal terms today. Nishino has gone home, but the bouquet remains. Machida finds Inohara again, the roses cradled in his arms like a burden he's more than willing to share. He doesn't make a grand gesture, doesn't say anything poetic. He just extends the flowers toward her, his face as unreadable as ever. Here, Inohara looks at the roses, then up at Machida. She needs to know if he's just a robot or if there's something flickering inside. She asks him how he felt when he heard Nishino's confession. Machida pauses, the gears turning behind his glasses. He doesn't say he was jealous. He says something far more complicated. It was similar to when I heard that Shiori has a boyfriend. That answer isn't enough for her. She doesn't want to be his sister. She wants to be seen for who she is. She grabs him, her face inches from his, her voice cracking with a vulnerability that finally breaks through his stoicism. She's tired of being part of his generic love for humanity. She wants her own sparkle. Notice me more. She runs off, leaving him standing there under the twilight sky, flowers in hand and mind racing. Machida walks home, the quiet of the streets a sharp contrast to the shouting match on the rooftop. He steps inside, and reality hits him in the form of scattered toys and energetic siblings. His domestic duties are waiting, and he steps right back into the role of the caretaker. You two are leaving a mess again. Even as he picks up blocks and folds clothes, he can't stop thinking about her. He wonders where she is, what she's doing, if she's currently feeling lonely in that big fortress she built for herself. He turns to his mother, his voice quiet, as he asks if it's really okay for a 5-year-old to be worrying about dates and boyfriends. He's looking for permission to feel something he doesn't understand yet. His mother just smiles, peeling a carrot with the effortless grace of someone who's seen it all before. She drops a truth bomb that levels Machida's entire concept of himself. Apparently, he wasn't always this stoic. He was once a 5-year-old on a mission of his own. He stares at her, his glasses nearly sliding down his nose in shock. You proposed to your kindergarten teacher saying you loved her? The midterm results are dropping, and the classroom atmosphere is just as damp and dreary as the rain hammering against the windows. The teacher is doing that classic do better next time speech, while the air fills with the sound of rustling paper. Machida sits there with his perfect posture and intellectual glasses, looking like the top student in the country, but the reality is about to hit the desk. He flips the paper over. It's a 36. A score so low it's practically a physical injury. His classmate Sakai-san tries to be polite about her average grade, but when she sees Machida's total disaster, she can't even filter her reaction. I feel like damage has been added. Machida just stares at the ink, taking the hit with his usual stoic grace. The teacher is genuinely baffled. Machida is the model student, a serious kid, yet he's consistently failing. He's stuck with makeup tests while the sky continues to pour outside. It's a piling up of all the areas where he simply lacks talent. He sighs, looking out at the rain, the list of his shortcomings growing longer by the minute. Then there's Inohara. She crushed the test with a 92, and she makes sure he sees it. But she isn't here to brag. She leans in, the weight of her previous confession still hanging between them. Notice me more. Machida watches her walk away, her words echoing louder than the rain. He's starting to realize that noticing someone might be the hardest test he's ever taken. He tells himself she was just kidding, but the thought lingers. He watches the rain, feeling a strange disconnect. He's always there, always observing, yet he feels a wall between himself and the rest of the world. He wonders if he's ever really looked at anyone at all. Back home, the rain hasn't let up, and neither has the domestic drama. Keigo is pushing his rice around, which for a growing boy is the equivalent of a national emergency. Machida leans in. his caretaker instincts immediately on high alert. Something is definitely wrong with the family's youngest heartbreaker. Shiori spills the beans, literally. Kigo has been getting his sugar fix from an uncle down at the park. The room goes silent as Machida's mind starts racing through every safety PSA he's ever heard. An unknown man, free candy, and a secret meeting? The sibling alarm bells are deafening. The description of this guy isn't helping. A man who lives alone and hangs out at the park. Machida and Mitsuo share a look of pure, protective dread. Is he unemployed? Is he dangerous? While the little ones wonder if they need more info, Machida's already planning a reconnaissance mission. Idiot Keigo. He nods to his sister, his face set in stone. This is something he struggles to handle, confrontation with the unknown, but for his family, he'll step into the line of fire. They head out into the gray afternoon, tracking the candy trail to a house that looks suspiciously normal. The nameplate reads, Sunu. Machida hesitates, hand near the gate, checking the name like he's disarming a bomb. Kigo is already there, totally unbothered, acting like they're just visiting a favorite neighbor. Then, the rattle of a sliding door. The moment of truth has arrived. Out steps a very normal, very kind-looking elderly man in a sun hat. Kigo yells Gramps and runs right for him, leaving Machida standing there feeling a little ridiculous for imagining a villain. The old man smiles, offering snacks and a warm welcome that completely melts the tension. Sunu-san quickly clarifies the situation with a chuckle. He's a grandfather, not some mysterious stranger. He looks at Machida's stiff posture and glasses, immediately guessing the reason for the visit. He offers to talk in the park, realizing the big brother needs some peace of mind. Sitting on a park bench, the old man admits he's been warned about before. In a world where a lone man talking to kids is automatically seen as a threat, he understands why people are wary. He has children of his own, but his voice carries a hint of something heavy as he watches the playground. He knows the labels: weird, scary, interesting. He just wants to be the neighborhood's kind old man, but he realizes that men like him often give off a vibe that makes others want to protect themselves. He looks down at his cane, a man out of time in a changing era. Machida asks about his family, and the answer is a quiet blow to the chest. His wife passed away before him, and his daughter rarely visits. He sits there, hands clasped over his cane, surrounded by the ghosts of a life that used to be full. The era is changing, and he's being left behind in the silence. The old man admits it, he's become rather lonely. As the first drops of a new downpour hit the pavement, Machida doesn't pull away. Instead, he leans in, asking if they can follow him back home so they aren't caught in the storm. He's not just avoiding the rain. He's refusing to let the man walk back into a quiet house alone. Sinu-san looks up, surprised by the sudden kindness. He was ready to trudge back and buy sweets alone, but now he has a trail of kids, and a stoic high schooler following him like a parade. Why not? A small smile finally breaks through his tired expression. Later that evening, Machida is back to his domestic duties, steam rising from the iron as he explains everything. The suspicious uncle is now just Sinu-san, and the danger has turned into an invitation. Shiori is already tagging along in her mind, her eyes wide with the promise of more sweets and a new grandpa to visit. It hits Machida that his siblings don't have any grandfathers left, both passed away before they were born. This connection with Sinu-san isn't just about safety anymore, it's about filling a gap in their world. He reaches out and pats Shiori's head, deciding that they'll all go together. The rain continues to fall as the school bell chimes, marking the end of another day. Machida spots Inohara in the hallway, her silhouette sharp against the glass. The wall he felt before is still there, but he's carrying a new thought with him now. A thought about what it means to be truly alone. He catches up to her and asks if she has plans. Specifically, if she wants to go to Grandpa's house. It's the most Machida invitation ever. No context, just pure sincerity. Inohara is understandably weirded out, her face twitching between confusion and her usual defensive coldness. I won't go. As she walks away, Machida wonders if he explained enough. He thinks back to Sinu-san's house, a quiet structure standing against the streetlights. He's always been surrounded by the chaos of his siblings, making it impossible to truly understand the weight of an empty home. Is living alone really that lonely? In his memory, Sinu-san drops a truth that changes everything. Living alone isn't the sad part. The sad part is knowing the people you love are out there but they aren't with you. He looks at Machida with a kind, knowing smile, the steam from their tea curling between them. It is precisely because I feel somebody is there that I am lonely. It's a paradox that makes Machida's heart ache. The presence of love creates the vacuum of its absence. Sanu-san chuckles, admitting that sometimes he misses having no one and nothing at all, because then there would be nothing to lose. The fear of losing something makes people lonely. Machida looks at the ground, Inohara's face flashing in his mind. Is that what she's feeling? Is her wall just a fortress built out of the fear of one day being empty? Suddenly, a loud crash shatters the silence of the memory in the room. Mitsuo stands frozen over the remains of a broken vase, looking like he's just committed a felony. Machida rushes over, his mind immediately calculating the cost, but Sanu-san just waves it off. Don't mind it. To him, it's just clay, but to the boys, it feels like they've broken a piece of the man's heart. Turns out, Sanu-san didn't just buy the pot, he made it. He has a kiln in the back, a secret world of creation he's been keeping to himself. He's not upset, he's actually happy that Machida thought it was splendid. It was just a hobby, but now it's a bridge between them. Machida, always the community organizer, has an idea, a pottery class for the neighborhood kids. It's the perfect way for Sanu-san to connect with the world without being scary. He sets up a sign, and just like that, the isolated house starts to breathe again. He's becoming the man he wanted to be. Sanu-san watches him work, a look of deep respect in his eyes. You are really good at understanding people's hearts. Machida freezes, the compliment hitting him harder than any test score. He tries to deflect, stumbling over his words, but the old man just smiles. He sees the kind of person Machida is trying to hide behind his stoicism. Back at school, the rain is still a constant companion. Machida watches Inohara walk away again, her bye-bye sharp and final. He realizes that while he might be good with hearts like Sanu-san's, he's still completely lost when it comes to hers. But he's decided on one thing, he won't give up on her. He stops her, his fingers clenching the strap of his bag. She told him to forget her request, to stop trying to notice her. But Machida, with that blunt, terrifying honesty of his, looks her right in the eye. I want to though. It's the simplest confession, and the most devastating. And so, the study session begins. Inohara is absolutely floored when she sees his actual test scores. Did you really do that bad, even though you wear glasses? It's a total betrayal of her worldview. Machida just nods, admitting he's academically challenged, and they sit together in the quiet classroom, the stacks of notebooks between them. The classroom is a vacuum of rain and scratching pencils. Machida asks about her middle school, guessing it was an advanced one. She's smart, she's sharp, but she's here, in a lower-level high school. There's a story there, one that she's kept hidden under a layer of cynicism. She tells him the truth, it wasn't bullying. It was worse. They just ignored her. She was invisible in a room full of people. Machida asks, why did they ignore you? With a directness that would be offensive if it weren't so sincere. He wants to know the mechanics of her loneliness. I'd like to learn more about Inohara-san. He leans forward, the light catching his glasses. Are you afraid to get along with others? It's a question that cuts right through her defenses, leaving her staring at him with wide, vulnerable eyes. The rain outside seems to hold its breath. She looks away, the armor finally cracking. I don't really know myself, that's what's scary. She apologizes for being cold, a moment of raw honesty that's far from the Ice Queen persona she projects. She's not afraid of others, she's afraid of the void she feels inside. She explains how she used to be, never expecting anything, never seeking anyone. She was safe in her isolation. But then Machida happened. When Machida-kun is here, my greed comes out, he's made her want things, and that wanting is the most terrifying thing she's ever felt. It's painful for her to lose that balance, to let the me who didn't want anyone slip away. She looks at him, her face flushed and her eyes wet, desperate for him to understand the chaos he's caused. Machida just listens, his voice a soft anchor in the storm. I see. It's fine to say it like that. One thing at a time. He tells her that he lacks academic brilliance, that he doesn't have all the answers. But if they think about it together, maybe the fear won't disappear, but it won't be so heavy. He's offering his presence, not a solution, and that's exactly what she needs. We can go slowly. He smiles, a genuine warm expression that reflects the kind old man's heart. Inohara looks at him, the tension finally leaving her shoulders, and for the first time she truly sees him too. Yeah, thanks. The wall is still there, but it's finally got a door. Suddenly, Machida blurts out that he likes the rain, purely because he's tired from studying and his mind is wandering. Inohara admits she doesn't like it, but then reconsiders. On a holiday, rain is a great excuse to stay inside and hide from the world. Machida nods, a small smile playing on his lips. I see, that's not a bad reason. They sit there together, two people learning that being together might just be better than being alone. The afternoon sun catches the edge of Machida's glasses as he marches home, his pace steady and purposeful. He isn't just walking, he's on high alert for the small cracks in the world he can fix. The stairs are a hazard for anyone in heels, and the world tilts for a classmate as her shoe catches the edge. She doesn't even have time to scream, just a sharp ah as gravity takes over. But before her knees can hit the concrete, Machida's steady hands lock onto her shoulders, anchoring her in place. He holds the pose just long enough to ensure she has her balance, his face a mask of calm concern. She stammers out a confused thanks, but Machida's attention is already elsewhere, his fingers twitching as the distant rattle of metal on pavement reaches his ears. A bicycle goes careening down the sidewalk, empty and chaotic. The owner is chasing after it, shouting about how this is the absolute worst, but Machida just steps into the path of the clattering machine. With a single fluid motion, he catches the handlebars and brings the chaos to a dead stop. He hands over the bike with a quiet thanks, leaving the owner blinking in disbelief at the boy who just saved his commute. Machida doesn't linger for the gratitude. He's already moved on to the next minor miracle, even keeping pace with a golden retriever that seems a bit too eager for its walk. The serenity is shattered by a child's sob. A little girl stands paralyzed as a massive, fluffy dog slips its leash, a white blur vanishing toward the busy street. Machida doesn't think, he just pushes off the pavement, his backpack bouncing as he sprints after the runaway pet. His fingers tangle in the coarse fur, pulling the dog back from the brink of the road. He stands there, panting slightly, as the little girl catches up, her eyes wide and brimming with tears. She can barely get out a thank you very much before he reaches out, giving her a gentle, reassuring pat on the head. His kindness is currently at full throttle, a literal antenna for the needs of everyone around him. At 16 years old, Machida Hajime isn't just living his life, he's actively holding the neighborhood together, one small act of service at a time. He steps through the front door and is immediately greeted by a whirlwind of blonde hair and a bright smile. It's Kazumi-chan, his aunt, looking as vibrant as ever. Welcome home. It's been a while. She chirps, but Machida's face remains a mask of focused intensity. He asks after his mother immediately, his voice tight with the anxiety he's been suppressing all day. She's taking a nap, Kazumi-chan explains, because she hasn't been feeling great. Today is the day the Machida family is about to grow by one more soul. The pressure of expectation is heavy. Machida hasn't slept properly in days. His mind a constant loop of labor preparations and sibling logistics. This exhaustion has pushed his five senses into an uncanny, hyper-aware state where every sound and shift in the house feels monumental. Kazumi-chan pauses, leaning in to inspect him with a playful squint. She realizes his hair color has shifted ever so slightly, a detail even her husband missed. As expected of natural-born Hajime, she laughs, reaching out to ruffle his hair. He leans into the touch, a rare moment of being cared for instead of doing the caring. As they work in the kitchen, the conversation turns toward her own future. Machida, ever the literalist, asks why she hasn't started a big family like theirs. She smiles, though her eyes stay focused on the tasks at hand, explaining that she and her husband are quite content with their current, quiet life. Kazumi-chan admits that while she loves children, the reality of raising them is a daunting prospect. She watches Machida, who manages the chaos of his siblings with such effortless grace, and confesses that she lacks that same confidence. Liking children and dedicating your life to them are two very different paths. She notes that perhaps her maternal instinct is already satisfied by him and his siblings. When Machida offers her a choice of tea or coffee, Kazumi-chan throws a curveball: tequila. He stares at her with deadpan seriousness, ready to go buy it, until she has to laugh and tell him she's just kidding. She pulls him into a sudden tight hug, the squeeze catching him off guard. Hajime is such a good child, so cute, she murmurs. Machida, ever the earnest high schooler, feels the need to return the compliment with clinical precision. You're also cute, Kazumi-chan. It's a sweet, awkward beat that highlights the deep, unspoken bond they share. Night falls, but the Machida house doesn't sleep. Hajime lies in bed, his eyes fixed on the digital glow of his alarm clock. 11:54 p.m., 1:30 a.m. He remembers reading that labor often starts at this hour, and every shadow in the room feels like a message he hasn't received yet. 4:05 a.m. The silence is finally broken by the rustle of movement. Kazumi-chan is headed to the hospital, and Machida is already at the door, his eyes bloodshot but determined. "I'll immediately text you," she promises. And he nods, his jaw set in a hard line of anticipation. She reminds him that even with a birth looming, school must take priority. She remembers how he sprinted out of class for Shiori and Kigo's births. But this time, he needs to stay put. He gives a quiet, absolute understood, though his posture suggests he's already halfway out the door. At school, Machida is a ghost in the hallways. He moves through the morning rituals on autopilot, his usual kindness replaced by a hollow-eyed stare. The teachers notice he isn't a genius, but he's usually present. Today, the lack of sleep has turned his world into a blur of static. Even his peers start to point it out. "You became a bit thinner," one notes, observing the sharp lines of his face. Machida tries to brush it off, genuinely surprised that anyone would notice his internal turmoil. To him, this is just the duty of an eldest son, but to everyone else, he looks like he's about to collapse. The lecture is a drone of meaningless sounds. He stares at the chalkboard, but the equations don't resolve. He tells himself not to worry, that his mother is strong, but the constant flicking of his mechanical pencil betrays the storm raging behind his glasses. The phone finally vibrates. The text from Kazumi-chan is short and electric. The contractions have started. The sound of his chair clattering against the floor echoes like a gunshot. His teacher barely has time to blink before Machida is blurting out that he has to go. "I'm leaving early," he shouts. A roar that echoes down the hallway. He's a blur of school uniform and raw desperation. The classroom door rattling on its tracks as he vanishes. He doesn't hear the teacher's confused call. He's already focused on the pavement ahead. The city is just an obstacle course. He runs with a singular, burning focus, his determination from moments ago fueling every stride. The world around him blurs into a smear of gray buildings and sunlight, his only reality the rhythm of his feet hitting the concrete. He slams the hospital door open, gasping for air, his chest heaving. His mother and Kazumi-chan look up in shock. "Oni-chan! Hajime!" Their voices are light, a sharp contrast to the life and death panic written all over his face. He asks about the intervals, his mind still in emergency mode, but his mother's smile is serene. "I finished giving birth in one go some time ago," she says softly. The air leaves Machida's lungs. He didn't just make it, he missed the entire event. A simple stunned "A" is all he can manage. Kazumi-chan leads him over to the bassinet, her words a gentle invitation. "Here, here." He looks down, and the world suddenly stops. Wrapped in a white blanket is a tiny sleeping miracle, a brand new life that makes all the running and the worry feel incredibly small. He stares, his glasses reflecting the soft hospital light. The baby is so small, so impossibly fragile. Every detail, the tiny fist, the rhythm of its breath, is a weight on Machida's heart, a new responsibility that he welcomes with open arms. Kazumi-chan asks if he wants to hold it, but he pulls back, his hands shaking. "It looks like it's trembling," he whispers, his own voice cracking. He's terrified of his own clumsy strength, terrified he hasn't washed his hands well enough. He just stands there, paralyzed by a love so sudden it hurts. He bends in close, his shadow falling over the bassinet. "Nice to meet you? Oni-chan is here." The tears finally break, hot and silent. He bows his head, a private sacred moment of devotion. "I will protect you." It's a vow that echoes through the room, the promise of a brother who will give everything for this tiny soul. The adrenaline finally gives out. Machida's knees buckle, and he sinks to the floor, his head resting against the bed as sleep finally claims him. Kazumi-chan and his mother watch him, a mix of amusement and deep affection. As he drifts off, his mind slips back to a time when he was the small one. He was just a boy with a drawing of a fish, desperate for a moment of his mother's time. But Nico was crying, and his mother was pulled in a dozen directions at once. He stood there, holding his masterpiece, learning early that in a big family, you sometimes have to wait your turn. It was Kazumi-chan who knelt down then, her eyes bright as she looked at his work. Amazing, she cheered, her voice a lifeline in the busy house. She named every fish, the tai, the marlin, giving him the validation he so desperately craved. She hugged him tight, declaring that she wanted to quickly give birth to a child just like him. Young Hajime didn't quite understand the significance of that praise, but he felt the warmth of it, a seed of kindness planted by a woman who saw him when no one else could. He wakes to the sterile smell of the hospital, realizing he's been tucked into a vacant bed. Across the room, Kazumi-chan is on the phone, her voice a low murmur. She's telling her husband about the birth, her posture relaxed and grateful. He watches her, noticing for the first time the way she wipes her eyes after the call. She looks tired, vulnerable in a way she never shows him. When she realizes he's awake, she quickly masks it with a smile. "Ah, you're awake?" she asks, her voice slightly thick. She explains that they were lent the bed by chance, a bit of hospital hospitality. Machida adjusts his glasses, the world coming back into focus, and he gazes at Kazumi-chan with a new level of clarity. He realizes just how much he owes to her quiet, constant presence. He tells her bluntly, with the honesty that only comes from total exhaustion, "Like a mother to me. Without her, he wouldn't be the brother he is today." Kazumi-chan's breath hitches, the words landing with a physical force. It's a recognition of years of love, delivered with Machida's characteristic sincerity. He doesn't stop there. "I'd like to care for you in your old age," he adds, a promise of lifelong devotion. Kazumi-chan can only stare, her eyes wide as she processes the sheer, unadulterated weight of his kindness. It's too much, and yet, it's exactly who he is. She collapses against him, burying her face in his shoulder. "What a killer phrase," she gasps, her laughter muffled by his shirt. She's crying now, truly crying, moved to her core by the boy she helped raise. Machida just sits there, a steady, silent anchor for her once again. She watches him with such pride, calling him a natural-born miracle. But Machida doesn't see himself that way. He feels supported by everything around him. On his phone, a new photo glows, a tiny, sleeping face. "Rokuro," he whispers, the name finally solidifying the new reality. Back at school, he explains the naming system to Inohara. Hajime is 1, Rokuro is 6. She's stunned by the sheer number of siblings, her eyes tracking him with a mix of awe and confusion. When he asks for her first name, she just gives him a sly, playful smile. Secret. Machida Hajime is just trying to navigate the school day when a sharp, desperate voice cuts through the hallway. He stops, hand hovering near his bag, his eyes widening behind his glasses as the drama unfolds just a few feet away. "I can't believe it!" It's a full-blown public execution. The girl is shaking with fury, her fists clenched as she stares down a boy who looks more bored than guilty. She isn't holding back, screaming so the whole wing can hear, "I'm sorry my ass." He just shrugs, offering a lazy see ya before turning his back on the wreck he left behind. The boy walks off, and the silence that follows is heavy with the sound of choked-back sobs. Takashima Sakura collapses into herself, her pigtails trembling as she tries to hide her face from the world, but then, a soft clatter, a can of royal milk tea is placed gently on the ledge beside her, a quiet, metallic peace offering. She blinks through her tears, looking at the warm drink, and then the retreating back of a boy who didn't even stop to ask if she was okay. He's already halfway down the hall, his posture as stiff and earnest as ever. She can only manage a weak, confused mumble. This?" He looks back for just a second, and there's no pity in his gaze, just a quiet, steady acknowledgement of her pain. Sakura watches him go, her face heating up for a completely different reason now. The sting of the breakup is suddenly eclipsed by the stranger who just saw her at her worst and chose to be kind. High above the courtyard, Inohara watches the entire exchange with a darkening expression. She saw the tea, she saw the look. Beside her, Sake comments on how outrageous girls like that can be, but Inohara is barely listening. She's already moving, her jaw set as she prepares to confront the boy who spreads his attention way too thin. Machida stares at her, genuinely baffled by her sudden hostility. He starts to wonder if his focus on others has left his friend feeling isolated again. Without a word, he extends his arm. His hand is steady as it lands on the crown of her head. A soft, rhythmic pat meant to soothe the loneliness he thinks he caused. Inohara freezes, her face turning a deep, explosive crimson as the reality of the touch sinks in. She snaps back, her voice echoing through the courtyard as she tries to teach him a basic rule of social engagement. Machida-kun, you absolutely cannot do that to a girl. He just watches her, tilted head and all, explaining it's just a habit from raising his siblings. The lecture is interrupted by a much brighter voice. Sakura is back, her face beaming as she holds out a small, tied-up bag. The tears from earlier are gone, replaced by a sparkling determination. I'm from the class next door. My name is Takashima Sakura. She offers the handmade cookies with a grin that could melt steel. Sakura isn't just saying thanks, she's launching a full-scale charm offensive. Inohara watches from the sidelines, feeling like she's witnessing a predator in the wild. Sakura's energy is infectious and overwhelming, quickly pivoting from cookies to a demand for friendship, even making sure to include Inohara in the invitation with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. As Sakura skips away, Sekai steps in to deliver a dose of reality. She leans in, her voice dropping to a serious whisper. She warns Machida that the girl he just saved is famous for acting cute to manipulate guys. Frankly, she's after you, so be careful, Machida-kun. Machida just listens with that blank, attentive face of his. He doesn't see a predator, he remembers a girl sobbing her heart out by a vending machine. To him, someone who cries that hard over a breakup isn't trying to toy with people, she's just someone who feels everything deeply. He dismisses the warning as just a feeling. Lunchtime rolls around and Sakura is already at his desk, her smile practically glowing. She wants him all to herself in the courtyard, but Inohara and Sake aren't about to let that happen. Inohara decides they're all eating together, turning a romantic invitation into a very crowded, very awkward group outing. The air in the hallway is thick enough to choke on. Sakura keeps her girl power turned up to maximum, while Inohara stares her down with a look that could curdle milk. They exchange names like they're sizing each other up for a fight. I'm Inohara. Nice to meet you, I'm Sakura. Sakura pulls out all the stops, offering Machida a little octopus-shaped sausage with a playful "on." It's the classic move, and Machida just stares at the piece of meat like it's a foreign object. Inohara watches the scene unfold with a growing sense of horror, her face a perfect mask of "what the heck, Machida-kun?" Sakura pivots, showing off a perfectly packed bento box as she mentions she wants to cook for him. For someone as clumsy and domestic disaster-prone as Machida, this is a feat of literal magic. He stares at the organized food with genuine, wide-eyed awe. Amazing, I can respect that. Sakura seizes the moment, leaning in with her eyes closed, and asking for a head pat as a reward. Before Inohara can even process what's happening, Machida's hand is already moving. He stretches out his hand and drops a soft, paternal pat onto Sakura's hair, completely unaware of the social landmine he just stepped on. Inohara has officially reached her limit. She snaps at Machida again, her face practically steaming as she pulls him away from the scene. Machida just offers a confused apology, waving his hands as if that would explain away the intimacy of the gesture. They retreat down the hall, leaving a very satisfied Sakura behind. Back in the classroom, Sakai comments on how Sakura's persistence is actually kind of impressive. Even Inohara has to admit there's a certain iron will beneath all that fluff and flirting. She's confused, her feelings a tangled mess of annoyance, and something she isn't quite ready to call jealousy. Machida says his goodbyes, a soft, pleasant smile on his face as he heads out. He doesn't notice the way Inohara watches him, her lips parted as if she's about to say something important, only to swallow the words at the last second. He just keeps moving, his world as simple and kind as ever. The next day, Sakura is right back at it, delivering yet another handmade bento with a heart on her sleeve. For Inohara, it's a strange sight, seeing him talk to a girl like this for the first time. It's a reality check that Machida's kindness isn't just reserved for those who need it, it's open to everyone. Days turn into a blur of shared lunches and card games. Sakura is always there, her pigtails bouncing as she laughs at everything Machida says. And in every shot, Inohara is somewhere in the background, a silent, watchful shadow, observing a dynamic she still can't quite understand. Sakura eventually vents her frustration to the girls. No matter what she does, Machida just treats her like a buddy. He doesn't blush, he doesn't stumble. Inohara quietly explains why. The boy has so many siblings, he's basically immune to body touches. To him, the whole world is just one big, extended family. Sakura stops, her gaze fixing on something in the distance. The playful mask slips for a second, replaced by a raw, genuine determination. She looks at Inohara, her voice quiet but firm. "Inohara-san, I'm going to confess to him, so don't think too badly of me." Machida walks back into the classroom, looking for the girls who usually follow him around. He finds Inohara sitting alone by the window, her expression unreadable. She tells him they went ahead, her eyes fixed on the courtyard where Sakura is waiting. She knows she can't stop what's about to happen. Sakai wonders if Machida will actually say yes. He's so kind, he might just go along with it to avoid hurting her. But Inohara remembers what he told her about taking things slowly, about valuing the time they spend together. Those words are a treasure to her, a promise of something deeper than a sudden confession. Inohara knows those words are like diamonds to her, something to be protected and cherished. She didn't want to rush things by using cheap tricks, but out in the courtyard under the shade of the trees, Sakura is ready to gamble everything. She takes a deep breath and finally says it, "Hey Machida-kun." Sakura asks him what kind of girls he likes, her heart pounding against her ribs. Machida, ever the eldest brother, says he likes them healthy because he'd worry otherwise. It's so absurdly literal, it almost breaks the tension. Sakura just laughs, wipes a tear, and delivers the line anyway. "I like you, Machida-kun." The words are out there now, hanging in the quiet air of the courtyard. Sakura is blushing furiously, her hands clasped tight as she begs for a chance. "Please go out with me." Machida stands perfectly still, his back to her, the silence stretching into an eternity as he processes the sincerity and gravity of her feelings. But then a familiar laugh echoes from a nearby window. It's him, the cheating ex-boyfriend, joking around with his friends like nothing happened. Sakura's eyes snap to him, her entire posture stiffening. The confession, the moment, everything is suddenly poisoned by the sight of the boy she's still trying to forget. Machida doesn't look away. He sees the way her gaze lingers on the other boy, the way her smile falters. With that terrifyingly blunt sincerity of his, he delivers the one truth she's been running from. The truth is that you'd rather get back together with him, right? The fight leaves her in an instant. Sakura slumps onto the bench, her shoulders dropping as she admits the truth. She tried so hard to force herself to move on, to find someone good and kind like Machida to wash away the hurt. But the heart doesn't listen to logic, no matter how many times your friends tell you to stop. She confesses everything. The flirty reputation, the cute act, even the cooking, it was all just a desperate performance to make him notice her. She wanted to be someone he couldn't ignore, someone he'd regret losing. She was never after Machida, she was just using his kindness as a life raft. Machida sits beside her, his presence calm and non-judgmental. He doesn't offer a romantic solution or a grand speech, he just admits his own limitations, speaking softly as they watch the other students pass by. "I don't know a lot about love, so I don't really understand the difficult stuff, but..." He turns his gaze toward her, offering a perspective that catches her completely off guard. He doesn't think she's wrong for holding on to her feelings. In his world, emotions aren't something to be fixed. Isn't it okay to like them until you hate them? Sakura blinks, her breath catching at the sheer simplicity of his kindness. He doesn't try to manage her happiness, he just gives her permission to feel what she feels, even if it's painful. It's up to that person to decide what happiness is. The profound impact of that statement finally breaks through Sakura's defenses, and she lets out a sob that's been building since that moment at the vending machine. This time the head pat is different. It's slow, deliberate, and full of the comfort he's given his brothers 1,000 times. Sakura buries her face in her hands, letting the tears fall. And high above, Inohara watches from the window, her expression finally softening into something like peace as she sees the true nature of his heart. The next day, the drama resolves with a sudden, head-spinning twist. Sakura and her ex-boyfriend are officially back together. Inohara is stunned, but Machida just takes the news with a quiet nod. For him, if that's where her happiness lies, then there's nothing else that needs to be said. Sakai is losing her mind over the absurdity of it all, feeling like they were all just toys in Sakura's little game. But as Machida explains what happened with his usual clumsy honesty, the tension in the group finally begins to dissolve. Inohara just watches him, a small, knowing smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Machida mentions the head pat again, still a little worried about the social faux pas. But this time, Inohara doesn't yell. She just looks at him and laughs, a bright, genuine sound that fills the space between them. For once, she's the one telling him he did the right thing, her heart lighter than it's been in days. Machida is just relieved to see his friend smiling again. He worries he might have hurt her feelings somehow, but his sincerity remains his greatest strength. He moves closer, a gentle promise in his eyes. You can come to me anytime you want to talk. And just like that, the air is clear. Even Sakura eventually finds her way back into their circle. A new, genuine friendship blooming where a performance once stood. Machida is just out for a normal grocery run when the world decides to test his gravity. 1 minute he's walking, and the next, he's a human pinball after a high-speed collision with a walking mountain of a man. The impact is so clean that a bystander can only gasp. He flew? Machida finds his eyes drawn to the massive hand reaching down for him, calloused, steady, and large enough to swallow his own. He hasn't even brushed the dust off his pants before the giant lets out a joyous shout that echoes through the whole district. Aniki. Machida draws a complete blank until the giant explains he's Hinata, Nico's old classmate. This is the kid who used to look like a literal cherub. Puberty and judo clearly didn't just knock on Hinata's door, they kicked it down and remodeled the whole house. Hinata laughs off the transformation, blaming his new tough look on his judo training. But beneath the muscle, there's a heavy hesitation when he finally works up the nerve to ask, "Is Nico-chan doing well?" The kid was practically a permanent fixture in their living room back in the day, following Nico around like a lost puppy. Then, one day, he just stopped coming over. Machida never pushed for a reason, knowing that the distance between people can grow just as fast as their height. Hinata's gaze drops, the guilt finally surfacing after years of silence. He hasn't forgotten the day his world felt too big for him. Turning his attention toward Machida, he asks if he remembers that afternoon in 3rd grade when the middle schoolers cornered them. It started with the pure, frantic mission of building a secret base out of cardboard and convenience store scraps. They were kings of their own little world until the real world arrived in the form of older kids who didn't care about their hard work. Hinata's voice is quiet as he admits the truth. I was there playing with her. The middle schoolers moved in with an arrogance that only teenagers have, calling them brats and kicking over their walls. Hinata was paralyzed. He watched the cardboard tear, watched Nico cry, and his own legs felt like they were made of lead. All he could do was tremble as he thought, I have to go save her. Then Machida arrived, not as a warrior, but as a boy with a branch and zero sense of self-preservation. He didn't think, he just stepped into the gap. Hinata watched from the shadows, the shame of his own retreat burning hotter than any punch. He admits, I was disappointed in myself. Hearing that Nico is still the same cheerful girl is like a weight lifting off Hinata's shoulders. He smiles, a genuine relieved thing that makes his massive frame seem less imposing. Machida heads home, the echoes of that old secret base still ringing in his ears. Machida walks in to find history repeating itself. The kids are currently building another cardboard house in the living room. When he mentions he ran into Hinata, Nico's face lights up with a joy that proves she never held a grudge. To her, he's just the friend she totally forgot she missed. A summer festival is coming up, and while the kids are already doing a victory lap, Machida hits a wall. With their mom busy with the new baby, Rokuro, he's the designated guardian. He can't go, but he can't stand to see the siblings miss out on the magic either. Nico suggests the perfect solution. Bring Hinata along. To her, it's just about having more hands to help with the younger kids. She doesn't realize that for Hinata, this is a chance to finally finish the mission he abandoned in that old secret base. Machida makes the call, and Hinata stutters so hard, it's a wonder the signal doesn't drop. He's coming. The house transforms into a frantic workshop of yukatas and dark ribbons as the festival preparations kick into high gear. Machida helps everyone else get ready, fully resigned to a quiet night at home while everyone else has fun. But then his phone buzzed. It's a text from Inohara. She's checking in, but the real question is buried between the lines. The tap of Machida's fingers is the only sound in the room as he clumsily invites Inohara to join them. He's completely oblivious to the panic he's causing on the other side. She fires back a question about who else is going, her heart likely doing gymnastics. Inohara stares at the screen, her fume of relief quickly turning into a knot in her stomach. She really wanted it to just be the two of them. Now, she's faced with the reality of a full family outing, wondering if she's actually ready to be introduced to the whole Machida clan. The festival is a blur of lanterns and laughter until the group finally congregates. Machida arrives with the kids, looking like a stressed-out camp counselor. But when he sees Inohara and Nico in their yukatas, the air in the shopping district suddenly feels a lot lighter. Nico doesn't hesitate for a second. She marches right up to Hinata, beaming up at the tower of a man with a laugh. "You became manly," she teases, completely unaware that she's currently making the toughest guy in the judo club want to melt into the pavement. Machida notices Inohara's hair is up in a bun, and he can't help but mention it with his usual tactical lack of a filter. She's practically vibrating with nerves, admitting she had to look up how to put on the yukata online. To Machida, it's just another sign of how much effort his friend puts into everything. Machida leans in and says it plainly. "It's pretty, I want to look at it forever." It's classic Machidaism, pure honesty delivered like a payload. Inohara nearly short-circuits, her whole world wobbling as she realizes that his kindness makes the entire day worth the effort. As they move into the crowd, Hinata's confidence doesn't match his size. He confesses that despite his judo, he's always losing because his spirit is weak. He's a giant who's still afraid of the first step, haunted by the time he couldn't move forward when it mattered most. Hinata's voice is a whisper of resolve when he says, "I want to become a man who can protect the woman he loves." It's heavy stuff, immediately punctuated by little Mitsuo dragging them toward a shooting game. Mitsuo is determined to win a plush doll for Inohara, and honestly the stakes feel just as high. The game is a success, and the group dissolves into the festival's rhythmic chaos. There are takoyaki stands, neon lights, and the constant buzzing energy of a summer night. For a moment it feels like the past is finally catching up to a happy ending. Reality strikes in the form of blistered feet. Nico and Inohara are suffering in their beautiful but brutal wooden sandals, while the kids are zooming around in their sensible sneakers. "My feet hurt" becomes the universal signal for a much-needed break. Hinata seizes the chance to be helpful, offering to run off and grab drinks for the girls. As he steps away, he turns back to Machida with a look of pure gratitude. He's not just thanking him for the invite, he's thanking him for bringing him back into the fold. Hinata admits that seeing Nico again is making him feel a little conflicted. She's still super cute, and that old childhood crush hasn't just gone away, it's grown alongside him. Machida listens with a quiet understanding, noticing the flush on Hinata's face that isn't from the summer heat. Hinata's still stuck in the past, admitting that he's the one who hasn't changed. But the conversation is cut short when they find the lemonade stand sold out. Hinata heads off to another booth, leaving Machida alone with his thoughts for just a second too long. Machida realizes that Hinata just needs one more push to break through his fear. But the push comes from the crowd. Two guys are leaning over Inohara and Nico, and the vibe shifts instantly from a festival to a threat. The girls look uncomfortable, and the distance between them and Machida feels like miles. "Shoot!" Machida realizes his mistake. He left the girls by themselves. He doesn't hesitate. He hands off responsibility for the younger kids to Mitsuo with a sharp order not to move an inch. Then he's off into the crowd, his focus entirely on the threat unfolding ahead. Machida catches up to Hinata, the words spilling out before he can even catch his breath. Nico and Inohara-san are getting hit on. Hinata freezes, the image of that old secret base likely flashing before his eyes. This is the moment he's been dreading and waiting for all at once. Hinata looks across the crowd and sees them, the men cornering Nico, the look of distress on her face. His heart is pounding against his ribs, but his legs are locked. The world is screaming at him to move, but his spirit is still that little boy in the cardboard house. Then a hand lands on Hinata's back. It's not a shove, it's a tap that feels like an electric jolt. Machida looks him dead in the eye, his own voice steady and filled with absolute confidence. "Go, Hinata." Machida doesn't just tell him to go, he gives him a reason to. "It's okay, no matter what happens, Oni-chan will be here for you." It's the permission Hinata needed to stop being afraid of the consequences and start being the man he promised he'd become. Hinata lets out a breath he's been holding for years and lets his legs carry him. He shouts a quick thanks over his shoulder, his massive frame already blurring as he sprints through the crowd. This time, he's not running away. Hinata arrives like a thunderclap, physically placing himself between the men and the girls. His presence alone is enough to send the threat scrambling back into the crowd. Machida watches from a distance, a small, proud smile touching his lips. He knew Hinata had it in him all along. The tension breaks into celebration as Hinata gets hoisted into the air by his friends. He's the hero of the hour, but his eyes keep searching for Machida. He's always wanted to meet his Aniki again, and now he knows exactly why. Hinata admits that as an only child, being treated like a younger brother by Machida made him truly happy. "I wish that you were my real Aniki," he says, his voice thick with a warmth that makes even Machida look a little touched. Hinata says his goodbyes, but it's more of a promise. "I will give my best to really become your little brother," he declares, flashing a grin that carries a hint of a deeper meaning. As he waves off toward Nico, Machida is left standing with Inohara in the quiet of the cooling night. Inohara overhears the little brother talk and asks Machida how he feels. He admits he's super conflicted. Does it feel like Nico is being taken away? He doesn't understand love well enough to know, but he can't deny there's an anxiousness humming in his chest. Inohara smiles, a soft thing that tells him he doesn't have to have all the answers tonight. "Take your time," she says, her eyes lingering on his for a second longer than usual. Machida nods, content to just walk beside his friend, knowing that some things are worth the long way home. A bell tolls, a sharp, metallic ring that cuts through the silence of the hall. The air smells like expensive fabric and nerves. A voice calls out, formal and final, "Mr. Machida Hajime, the preparations are done." He moves like he's underwater, hand reaching for the heavy handle. His heart is a drum in his ears. Beyond the threshold, a white veil catches the light, and his thoughts are a tangled mess as the voice reminds him, "Your bride is waiting." Rewind 2 hours. The city lights are just shimmering reflections on the water, cold and distant. A heavy, exhausted sigh carries over the railing, pulling Machida's gaze away from the path ahead. She looks like she's about to be swallowed by the night. Machida doesn't think he just moves. His fingers close around her arm, a steady anchor in the dark. She nearly jumps out of her skin, turning on him with wild eyes. She blurts it out before she can even process who he is. "I won't jump, okay." Then the recognition hits, the confusion deepening as she whispers, "Hajime-kun." She's practically vibrating with sudden chaotic energy. She leans in close, pointing a finger like she's handing down a sentence. "Marry me, you proposed to me, didn't you?" The cafe is quiet, the hum of the city muffled by glass. She lets out a long exhale, the smoke from her cigarette curling between them. She's not just a stranger, she's Aiko-sensei, his old kindergarten teacher. Machida can't help but feel a flicker of shame as he mutters, "How foolish of me." Back then, the world was simpler. A small boy with big glasses and a paper flower, looking up with a heart full of absolute certainty. But now Eiko sits across from him, chin in her hand, the light in her eyes replaced by a heavy, hollow sigh. She tries to brush it off with a laugh that doesn't reach her eyes, calling him a good kid. Then, her voice drops an octave, heavy with a regret she's been carrying for years. "I reserved a wedding photo shoot for today. The partner? Undecided. She's been marriage hunting for 2 years, running in circles until she hit a dead end. She stares at the empty table, her voice trembling slightly. 2 years ago I reserved it for today. Do you understand why? She wanted a goal, something concrete to aim for, but it ended in a messy, quiet failure. She swallows hard, the sound loud in the small booth. I'll stay an unmarried woman the rest of my life." Machida just looks at her, his gaze unfiltered and honest. It's a simple observation, but it hits like a freight train. "I find it strange since you're so pretty." She freezes, the absurdity of her own life suddenly making her want to scream and laugh at the same time. In the old days, the boys used to tease her, trying to break through that perfect, pretty shell. She was the idol of the playground, but beneath the surface she was always just a person trying to keep it all together. They used to say she lacked charm, even if she had the face of an angel. She blames her lack of cuteness for her current misery, but Machida doesn't let her hide. He leans forward, his voice steady as he delivers the blow. "You're very humane. I think that I really did like you back then." The tension breaks. She stretches, feeling a little lighter, ready to cancel the whole thing and move on. But Machida's mind is already moving toward a different solution. "In that case, you should get them taken with me." She nearly chokes on her own air, waving her hands in a frantic no. People will laugh, they'll stare. It's ridiculous, but Machida just stands up, extending a hand like it's the most natural thing in the world. So come on, stand up. The reception desk is gleaming, white, and intimidating. She tries to pass him off as her nephew, but the lie tastes like ashes. Around them, photos of happy couples mock her frustration, making her wonder if she'll ever be the one behind the glass. She sinks into a chair, the exhaustion returning. She asks him if doing this for her will make someone else sad. Machida pauses, his thoughts drifting to a girl with sharp eyes and a hidden heart. I have a female friend. He remembers the summer festival. The way she looked in the yukata she had to figure out all by herself. It's a quiet ache in his chest. He hasn't quite named yet. I thought she was cute. I don't understand why though. Eiko listens, the smoke from her cigarette hanging heavy in the air. She sees what he doesn't, that his kindness isn't just a gift, it's a mirror. She realizes he's been comparing her to his friend, and in that comparison, there's a sting of pity she wasn't ready for. She pulls herself together, the pretty mask slipping back into place. This way, please. Machida steps into the changing room. The date on the clock mocking the 2-year-old promise. He catches his reflection, wondering why today felt so urgent for her. Hands comb through his hair, adjusting the bangs, pulling him into a version of himself he doesn't recognize. In the mirror, the word pity echoes in his head. It's a sad word, heavy and cold. He thinks of Inohara again. Does he pity her because she does everything alone? The question burns, demanding an answer as his eyes fixate on his own transformed face. Do I think that Inohara-san is pitiful? Since when? He remembers what she told him about her parents, about how she learned to expect nothing from the world. She gave it her all in the silence of an empty house, fighting battles no one else saw. No, it's not like that. Pity is too small a word for what they are. She was giving it her all. Then the voice breaks through his thoughts, bringing him back to the moment. Mr. Machida Hajime. The doors open. Eiko stands there in a cloud of white lace, looking back with a look that is half dream, half disbelief. Machida stands tall in his suit, the two of them caught in a snapshot that feels like it belongs to another lifetime. He doesn't hesitate. To him, the truth is just something you say out loud. You're beautiful, Eiko-sensei. She blushes, a soft pink against the pure white of the dress, looking just like the woman who used to wear a white apron in his childhood memories. He remembers the promise, the way he thought marriage was just a way to make sure no one was left alone. If we marry, we'll become family, right? He asked the question that has guided him ever since. Why are there people who are and who aren't family? She had told him it was difficult, that maybe the number of people we can protect and love is limited. But she had smiled that same sad, beautiful smile as she spoke. The camera flashes, a blinding white light that seals the moment forever. In his head, the little boy's voice answers her. If that's so, it might really be the best to think of everyone as family. Sensei, even now, the words you said to me a long time ago still resonate in my heart. I have a big family that makes me happy, both in my house and outside. In my heart, you're also family, Sensei. His eyes soften as he watches her, the boy she once taught now offering her the greatest gift he has. You're not alone. She stares back, the words sinking in, breaking through the wall of her own loneliness. Everyone is giving their best. That's why he doesn't pity them. He loves them. Not with a simple romance, but with a deep, sheltering affection. I love people. And in that moment of absolute clarity, her name rises to the surface of his mind. A girl who is giving her best, even when it hurts. Inohara-san is dear to me. They step out into the evening air. The city is awake now, a low roar in the distance. He pulls a single rose from his pocket, the petals delicate and soft in his hand. See you? He hands it to her, a simple, perfect birthday wish. She's stunned, wondering how he could possibly have known. When he admits he asked the staff, she nearly dies of embarrassment. I'm 40 years old. Your concern's embarrassing me instead. He tells her it was the same one she wore on her chest in the photo. It was cheap, a small thing, but she clutches it like it's made of diamonds. I'm so happy. Meeting him was the real present. She waves goodbye, a bounce in her step that wasn't there 2 hours ago. Machida watches her go, his mind still working through the threads. Sensei is so cute. I think she is similar to someone. Similar to Inohara-san. He stares up at the clouds, his thoughts drifting back to the kindergarten version of himself. Did the 5-year-old me really fall in love? He still doesn't understand the rules of love or the weight of the word. But he knows that the person he loved first is the person he sees now when he gazes toward Inohara. And maybe that's all the answer he needs for tonight.